Right, let's get into the letters to the seven churches in Revelation 2 and 3. Do you think that Jesus wrote 7 letters to 7 obscure churches far from the Galilee region for the sole purpose of admonishing those individual 7 churches? And to all the rest of Christianity throughout all of the ages, it's just useful but mostly anecdotal information? Or do you think, just like literally all other prophetic scripture, there is a far more dynamic and profound application here? Yes, I do too. Remember, this is preparing us for the revelation or revealing of Jesus Christ. We just need to ask, what are these letters trying to tell us so we can be prepared for Him? God is dumping a bag of keys in your lap. It's your choice what you want to do with them. Don't press B, by the way. Evangelical Christianity, for lack of a better descriptor, has long taught that the 7 letters are a chronology of the church age from the days of the apostles to the day of the Lord, also known as the times of the Gentiles. There are a lot of really interesting facts about these churches that lend to this concept, that the first 3 are relegated to ancient history, while the remaining 4 are current and will continue to exist basically until the day of the Lord. Now, a small but substantial support for this theory actually appears right here on the map of the region. We can see that in the order of the letters, the cities are arranged from 1 to 7 in a clockwise fashion. I don't think this is by accident. So the arrangement of the letters reflects the timeline, if you will. 3 are yesterday and 4 are today. In this particular model, the church at Ephesus is considered the apostolic church, or the early Gentile church built by the apostles, mainly, I guess, Paul and Timothy and their gang. If you read the book of Ephesians, you'll see several instances of Paul calling them Gentiles. I personally believe Smyrna is the Jewish believers, the heavily persecuted church of that era, and therefore one might assume the apostles themselves are included in this group. They were certainly Jews and certainly were murdered. Pergamos is the worldly church because of their adulterous marriage to the world. Thyatira is called the medieval church for obvious reasons, and also, as we'll clearly see in the letter, they are also married to the world, just like Pergamos. Sardis is next. They would be conceived and usher in the Reformation. And the last 2, Philadelphia and Laodicea. Of course, the modern church loves to place itself in the letter to Philadelphia and refer to the latest one as the apostate church. But as usual, I've got other plans for our study. Now, admittedly, this 7 letters chronology theory is a modern one, and this is why. One would never have arrived at this point without being able to look back at the full 2,000-year church history. If one is to look back from our standpoint in time, one can begin to see how these 7 churches equate to the chronology of the Christian church and the dynamic changes she's been through in these 2 millennia. But a few hundred years ago, it would have been much more difficult to recognize simply because several of these churches didn't exist yet. Go back to the days of the church fathers, and it would be nearly impossible for them to see the future of the church laid out here in these letters, prophetically. But that's okay, because they're not the final authority on anything, are they, precious? Now, if you want an exhaustive 9-hour treatise on the revelation of Jesus Christ, including a thorough study of the 7 churches, I would suggest Chuck Missler. I first embarked on the full video series over 20 years ago and actually ran through it again sometime during COVID. Now, not that I agree with everything he or anyone else says for that matter, but he was really a brilliant teacher. I'll add a few links to the Koinonia House in his material below. Much like our beloved John Lennox, he was never formally trained as a theologian. He actually held a master's in engineering and spent his career in computers and aerospace. But I found these guys can be some of the best Bible teachers to follow, just trying to get away from the ocean of academic theology and open a few doors here and there that normally aren't allowed. But Missler goes into great detail about the history of these 7 churches, the letter's obvious local or personal admonition at the time, as well as the homiletic and prophetic application one must expect, being that these are embedded in a prophetic book. Now, I learned a lot from Chuck over the years, but obviously I'm suggesting that there's a lot more to it than he covered in his material. I'd really love to see his reaction if I could show him our clock graphic. I think he would really have liked that one. Now, if you've been around here much, you'll know that my mission on this channel is to find purpose, meaning, and instruction in every single word of Scripture. I just know these bygone churches are important, even though they're history. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is, how dreadfully important it is for us to all strive to overcome, whatever that means. But at this late hour, I think we really need to figure out what that means. When we're serving Jesus and working at his calling in our lives, what does it mean to overcome? These letters provide some great insight. I really think I need to stress something here, though. I'm going to be following a theme here in this study, and that is that our assumptions, and when we jump to conclusions about things, it really thwarts our progress, and it can be very dangerous when it comes to these topics. So if you automatically assume that failure to meet some certain mark, according to these letters, or according to any scripture for that matter, if you equate that to condemnation, which is really a syndrome in the Christian church, this is a huge mistake to do this. Jesus died for you. His blood covers you. Just leave it at that. It is finished. He conquered death. Now, we can't leave it at that and say, where's my free ticket to heaven, and I don't have to do anything. This is what these letters are getting at. All right, so if you need to back up and go through that stuff first, please do, because this is some pretty serious stuff of these admonitions in these letters. Anyway, back to the topic here. Missler, and frankly many others, divided these first three churches from the other four simply by the message to the overcomer being located in the postscript of the letter rather than in the body of the letter, right? And to some Christians, especially here in England, that evidence is a bit too soft and circumstantial to rely on. And maybe my clock diagram isn't even enough for them either, but check this out. If you look at the actual message to the overcomer in each letter and you categorize them by the dispensation they refer to, you see something very interesting. This is what we're going to explore in the next video. It's literally going to post right on the heels of this one, I promise. I just have some graphics to make up and there's some time-consuming things. But here's where my heart is, okay? You know how I keep complaining about having to do this alone, and this should be a community thing, as it always has been for the Jews. Somehow the Western Christians just never got the memo. I want us to be able to solve this puzzle together. I want to work on it together. All right, so here's a question just to light things off. Is there a chiastic structure to these 7 letters? If you don't know what a chiastic structure or a chiasm is, you really need to look into that like yesterday. It's very common in Hebrew Bible, Hebrew literature. So I do think some of these 7 letters line up with each other in different ways and possibly in a chiasm. But I'd like to collaborate with you guys and get some theories about this stuff written down so I can make another video and kind of compile all of it. Doesn't that sound like fun? And by the way, did you know God gives another message to the overcomer apart from these 7 letters in the book of Revelation? It's a message to everyone everywhere. It's toward the back of the book. It says, "He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son." Isn't that special? Anyhow, I'm looking forward to exploring the 7 different churches individually and getting after all the material I have that's waiting to be explored and talking about all the stuff that you guys are going to add in the comments. I'm excited about that. It seems like the more we do this, the more he gives us insights into these things that are going to happen in our very near future. So I'm having fun. I hope you guys are too. Okay? Onward and upward. See you soon.